In professional sports, analyzing young prospects is so difficult, and no matter how much you dive into the way these players play, there's honestly no telling how good they'll be when they finally make it to the league. You can look at their measurables, their athleticism, their strength, their prior production, and all sorts of other areas that scouts analyze when projecting prospects in the draft to try to make an accurate prediction of how good they'll be or could become. But ultimately, the only thing that matters is what those players do in their time on the court. The draft is such an inexact science, so every year we see players both fail to live up to the hype if they get drafted early on, and we see players overperform if they slip into the second round or even go undrafted. For today's video, we're going to be discussing one player in particular that entered the NBA with literally no expectations at all after being a second-round pick, and is now proving to be one of the biggest steals in recent draft history, despite garnering very little coverage this season, with that player being Devonte Graham of the Charlotte Hornets. Before we get started though, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, as all support is very much appreciated. Now with that being said, let's begin. Before Devonte Graham even got to the NBA, he was used to being in the role of counted-out underdog. In his first 3 seasons of high school basketball, he was a good, not great player that got attention from a few Division I programs, but only mid-majors in weaker conferences. In his junior season, he actually committed to play for Appalachian State, who play in the Sun Belt Conference, so while they are Division I, they definitely aren't a program that get much national attention. However, before his senior season, he transferred to a new school, and this was when things started to take off for him as a prospect. At his new school, he had what was easily the best year of his high school career, and as a result, he went from a recruit only getting attention from small mid-majors to someone wanted by several big-time programs. He decommitted from Appalachian State, and after receiving offers from Virginia, Virginia Tech, Providence, Kansas, and Kansas State, he committed to play for the Kansas Jayhawks. Now, if you follow college basketball even a little bit, you should know that Kansas is one of the biggest, most historically successful programs in the entire country, so expectations for their team every year are extremely high, and as a result, nothing is guaranteed for the players unless they earn it. Coming in as a 6'1" 4-star recruit that didn't really blossom into the kind of prospect Kansas would have even wanted until his senior year, Graham was far from a sure thing when it comes to being a contributor for them. Knowing this, Graham put his head down and got to work, and with each season in the program, he not only improved his individual production across the board, but he also earned more and more of head coach Bill Self's trust as well. Graham's shooting has always been his best tool, and it's also what got him on the court immediately as a freshman. He didn't have a big role yet, but as a bench player, he averaged about 6 points per game and shot about 43% from deep, so if nothing else, his shooting was a valuable asset right away. After year 1, he earned a starting spot and started every single game he played for the team for the next 3 years. His points per game increased in each of his 4 years, his assists increased in each of his 4 years, his steals increased in each of his 4 years, and most importantly, throughout all of this, he maintained his efficient 3-point shooting, knocking down 41% of his threes over the entirety of his career. In fact, in his senior season, he performed so well that he was in the running for National Player of the Year, but even though he didn't win it, he did win the Big 12 Player of the Year award and also got named to First Team All-America. As an advocate for those honors, Bill Self himself had some big-time praise for his point guard, as in an interview, he said, "Graham's been so consistent. He's won. I'm not putting anyone else down, I'm just pumping my guy. When you look at second leading scorer in the league, he takes every shot at the end of the shot clocks, he's our primary handler, he never comes out, he guards the other team's best player on the perimeter every night. I think those things add up and your team wins. I really believe he deserves that honor." Basically, Graham did whatever was asked of him, made tons of big-time plays on both ends of the floor, and flat out contributes to winning basketball. So after a season where he received this much hardware while also helping lead his Kansas team to the Final Four, you would have thought that he would have been taken seriously as an NBA prospect, right? Well, that wasn't necessarily the case at all, and if anything, he was a bit of an afterthought. The combination of him being undersized at only 6'1", as well as being a 4-year player, meant that his chances of landing in the first round were pretty much non-existent. As I've explained in several videos I've made in the past, this kind of logic and reasoning NBA teams use is so incredibly flawed, and every year a few of these glossed over players break out, yet it's a trend that continues year after year. NBA teams always value one-and-done players with potential over experienced upperclassmen because they see their youth as potential for greater development. But sometimes it's tough to ignore a player that, after 4 years of college ball, is already a highly capable player. Graham, to no one's surprise, fell to the second round and was taken with the 34th overall pick by the Atlanta Hawks before being immediately traded to the Charlotte Hornets. Going to a team like the Hornets is a big reason why, even now, he's barely getting any recognition for his terrific play, because if we're being honest, there isn't much else that's interesting about that team to the average fan. But before we get into his current season, his rookie season was almost the opposite regarding his play. In year 1, he received occasional minutes off the bench, but in those minutes, he struggled adjusting to the NBA game. He averaged fewer than 5 points per game, and shot terribly inefficient from both the field and surprisingly from 3, which is the first time in his recent career he's ever struggled with his shot, but the NBA line is a bit further back than the college line, so I suppose that's an adjustment that some players aren't comfortable with overnight. Coming into this season, the Hornets lost their star point guard in Kemba Walker, but they replaced him with Terry Rozier, so Graham still wasn't expected to have that big of a role. However, similar to the jump he made from year 1 to year 2 in college, Graham is making a leap arguably better than any other improved player this year, and despite no one talking about it, is arguably the leading candidate for the Most Improved Player award early on this season. As I mentioned earlier about Bill Self praising Graham's play, Graham actually reciprocated that respect in an interview regarding why he's starting to feel more comfortable at this level, saying, "Coach Self putting the pressure on me to know what all 5 guys gotta do in each play really helped me as a player with my IQ and stuff like that, which has really helped me pick stuff up here pretty well." The 4 years of college basketball under one of the best coaches in the country, surprise surprise, was actually a huge positive for him, and even though NBA scouts tend to ignore this kind of stuff, it's very evident. This season, Devonte Graham is averaging about 19 points per game, has once again found his shooting stroke, and is shooting about 42% from deep, while launching a whopping 9 3-point shots per game. That size of volume, combined with that high of a shooting percentage, puts him up there with the very best shooters in the league, and because he's been playing so well, he's forced himself into Charlotte's starting lineup. On top of his shooting, his playmaking has also been a big reason he's found success this year, because not only does he score the ball, but he also dishes out 7.8 assists per game. For a comparison to the rest of the league with how good these numbers are that Graham's been putting out, we all know that James Harden takes and makes more threes than anyone in the NBA. But if you had to take a guess as to who in the league has made the second most threes this year, I bet you would be shocked if I told you that it was none other than Devonte Graham. Regarding his playmaking now, players like LeBron James, Luka Doncic, Ricky Rubio, Ben Simmons, and Trae Young are all players that probably wouldn't surprise you if they were leading the assist category. And they do indeed make up the top 5 in assists per game. But coming in at number 6 is Devonte Graham. Think about this for a second. Graham is shooting threes at a volume comparable to James Harden, and dishing out assists as well as some of the best passers in the league. He's been everything teams want out of their point guard in today's NBA, and yet probably receives less coverage by both the media and fans than Alex Caruso. If he played for a big market team like the Lakers, he'd be in the headlines every week because of how good he's been. So if no one else is going to give him the shine that he deserves, then I will. He's the truth, he's got a great future ahead of him, and he may even win Most Improved Player this year. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below your thoughts on Graham's journey to this point. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.